Tennessee basketball just went into College Station and couldn't come out with the win. Final score: Tennessee 69, Texas A&M 85. Could have been a little bit worse. Tennessee makes a little bit of a run down the stretch, but overall, the Vols can't get it done on the road against Texas A&M. I'm Ryan Sylvia. This is Noah Taylor. We're with VolReport.com on the Rivals Network. And let's start by talking about what the Aggies did well, which was shoot the ball. Coming into this game, they sat at 6.5 made three-pointers a game. They were shooting under 30% on three-pointers. And they're going to leave the night shooting 39.3%, but at halftime, that mark was at 50. They hit that 6.5 per game mark. They exceeded that with 7, just 11 minutes into the game. Wade Taylor, the fourth, probably the guy who's neck and neck with Dalton Knecht at this point for SEC Player of the Year. He hits 5 threes alone in the first half for 15 points. Is it just bad defense? Is it just hot shooting? Is a little bit of both? What happened there with Texas A&M catching fire?
Yeah, I think when you give those numbers of what Texas A&M was doing, entering this game, it just kind of feels like maybe one of those nights that just kind of happened where a team that you don't expect to shoot that well, and then how obviously having the backdrop and the playing at home helps a lot too. But yeah, Wade Taylor, a guy that definitely was able to kind of go, like you mentioned, neck and neck with Dalton Knecht in that SEC Player of the Year race. He makes an argument tonight with a really good night, and it like you said, it kind of went down a little bit. I don't think we expected. I think we talked about it at halftime that Texas A&M was going to be able to keep up that production offensively like they did in the first half, but they did enough in the second half, and obviously building that lead helped a lot. So I do think maybe a little bit of it was just kind of one of those nights for Tennessee where a team shot really well, and it's obviously really hard to win on the road for anybody. But, yeah, it was really hard for Tennessee to overcome, and obviously Radford as well, playing as well as he did. Just a bad combination for Tennessee overall.
Yeah, Radford goes off, actually leaves the team in scoring. It felt like Wade Taylor, but Wade Taylor kind of cooled down there in the second half, which is, like you said, something we were talking about at halftime, where it was like, all right, they're shooting really well. Tennessee's only behind 14, and it felt like, okay, when is Tennessee going to put these stops together, go on this 10-0 run, and you look at the scoreboard and it's a 4-point game, and who knows who wins. We saw it in a game like at Georgia. We saw it in a game like at UNC, where those results are split. You win at Georgia, lose at UNC. But we've seen them have those poor first halves where things are going wrong on both ends of the floor, but they're able to storm back and either get a win or make it a really close game. And that just never happened tonight. They were able to get it within single digits, I think, 1 or 2 times maybe down the stretch, but no closer than 9 or 8. A couple shots away from maybe making things interesting, but just weren't able to get them to roll. For me, though, yeah, I think that a lot of it is just hot shooting. I think there was some defensive breakdown, some missed assignments, some things that need to be cleaned up. But for the most part, I don't think it's something that should be this huge concern going forward necessarily for Tennessee, just because A&M went out there and couldn't miss on their home court tonight. Let's talk about Tennessee now, though. We'll start with the good, because there was a lot of bad that came from this game. So let's start with some of the good. Zakai Zeigler, Dalton Knecht, they played really well down the stretch, in my opinion. Zeigler plays all 40 minutes tonight, which is insane. So you have to kind of tip your cap to him and that effort. Dalton Knecht sits a lot with foul trouble, but comes in and just can't miss a shot. And that's something they needed the whole game maybe, but he ends with 22 points, 6 for 15 from the field, 6 for 11 on three-pointers. So all of his makes come from distance. Maybe would like to see him get downhill a little bit more, but you're also not going to hate 6 made three-point shots. 7 rebounds, that's a team high. 2 blocks. I heard on the radio feed, which you don't really think about this because it's Dalton Knecht and so many other things stand out. He's second on the team in blocks behind Jonas Adu. Not necessarily something you'd think of, but he adds 2 tonight, making that deficit a little bit smaller against Jonas Adu. And then Zakai Zeigler, 15 points, the only other guy to get over double figures, 5 for 15 shooting, 1 for 8 from 3, 6 assists, only 3 turnovers, and 6 rebounds. So maybe not the most efficient night from Zakai Zeigler, but he was instrumental down the stretch as well. What were your thoughts on how those two played, especially there in the second half when Tennessee was having that kind of too little, too late run?
Yeah, I kind of think with Zakai, I mean, he's just playing so well right now and doing things you kind of expect. Like you said, the efficiency was a little bit down tonight compared to, where it's been the last couple of games. But a guy that keeps Tennessee in the game, and he had to do it, essentially by himself for a while there because, like you said, I think that kind of – and Texas A&M shot so well. I don't want to say that this was the biggest difference in the game, but
Yeah.
Dalton Connect missing chunks of time in that second half.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming in and hitting back-to-back three-pointers. Next thing you know, it feels like a ball game again. But then you look at the clock, and you're like ticking inside 3 minutes. And it just kind of seemed like that would have been huge to have him out there in those minutes. Dalton Connect, I mean. And, having him with foul trouble, I think, really hurt Tennessee's chances. But Zakai Ziegler, I don't think you can say enough about what he's been able to do and really keeping Tennessee in that game and trying to right that ship by himself while Dalton Connect was out.
And Dalton misses from the 10:02 mark when he picks up that fourth foul down to the 4:35 mark. That's always an interesting question, I think, when you look at these games where it's like, do you kind of foul them out yourself and bench them for 4.5 minutes, or do you see what he'll do and maybe he picks up one more immediately and then you feel like a fool? So Rick Barnes opts to sit him for a little bit. He comes in, hits a bunch of shots, but at that point, game kind of felt out of reach. Quickly, I want to talk about Jahmai Mashack before we move on to some of the bad things that happened for Tennessee. He plays 1 minute in the first half, whistled with a foul, had a bit of a defensive miscommunication. Rick Barnes seemed upset, pulled him, and that's the whole story for him in the first half. In the second half, it felt like he was kind of a heartbeat for Tennessee on both ends of the floor. Awesome on the offensive glass, 5 offensive rebounds, was able to get multiple second chance tip-ins, finishes with 8 points on 3 for 6 shooting. And he's the only guy on the team that finishes with a positive plus minus, only at 3. And he only plays 16 minutes, but still felt like a good second half from Jahmai Mashack. What were your thoughts on what the team looked like without him in the first half and then how different they looked in the second half?
Yeah, I mean, it's undeniable just what he brings defensively and with the way Texas A&M was playing. And like we've already talked about, a lot of that was just A&M being able to hit on some really deep shots. I don't know how much difference it would have made on defense. I don't know if necessarily Tennessee was just they were certainly out of place sometimes, but some of those shots, I just don't know how much of a difference he would have made. But, being one of the top defenders in college basketball, certainly the best defender on this team, you would think that he would have seen more minutes there despite the early foul. But second half, like you said, kind of a guy that, the numbers, when you look at what Dalton Connect was able to do, what Zakai was able to do, the point total doesn't jump off the page necessarily, but he hit some big shots there. Like you mentioned, the tip-ins and the second chance points, hit 2 free throws as well that were kind of helped Tennessee a little bit there. Ultimately, it wasn't enough to come back, but I think you summed it up well, kind of the heartbeat there for Tennessee. And a guy, if you look outside of Zakai Ziegler and Dalton Connect, was certainly that third guy that helped Tennessee out offensively in that second half.
You mentioned 2 made free throws from Jahmai Mashack. Well, let's start talking about the bad things that happened for Tennessee, that went wrong for Tennessee. The free throw line. He makes 2. He also misses 2. You look at Dalton Connect, who's such a phenomenal shooter. It really is baffling sometimes the recent stretch he's had where he's been poor from the free throw line. 4 for 9 at the line today for Dalton Connect. Just doesn't make a lot of sense for a guy that's such a good shooter. You feel like maybe it's just a cold stretch, but it's been a couple instances now where he hasn't been able to get it done there. Thinking back to the loss to South Carolina as well. Zakai Ziegler even misses 3 free throws of his own. The team as a whole shoots 60%. What's going on at the free throw line?
Yeah, I mean, it is baffling. A 2 guys that can put, 15, 20, 30 points a night for you and just can't get it done there. You mentioned that South Carolina game. Obviously, that loomed really large in a game that was a lot closer. But even tonight, it just seemed like that did kind of kill the momentum when Tennessee was able to find a little bit, which is hard to do on the road at all, and especially when you're trailing by double digits most of the way. I don't really know. I mean, we saw that night after the South Carolina game where the guys came back in the gym, after the game and put up some shots. It's tough right now for Tennessee there. It's hard to explain, but 60% is certainly not going to cut it anywhere, no matter where you're playing, but on the road in a road game and in a game where, again, Tennessee trailed, most of the way and trailed by double digits most of the way. But who knows? You get a foul there It feels like you're trying to get back in the game. 2 free points essentially could have been big for Tennessee in this game, and obviously they didn't come through in a lot of instances.
And there was multiple times where it's not just, well, he keeps making one, missing one. It was just missing both, front rimming both. And that's what I think a little bit of the frustration comes is when you feel like, all right, well, we should get 2 free points here. We're at least going to leave with one. And then you go back on defense and the score looks the same. I think that adds to the frustration a little bit. Rebounding, another issue. Texas A&M's calling card is being a great team on the glass. They win the rebounding battle 43-35. Offensive glass 14-12, 15 second chance points. It wasn't horrendous. It wasn't as bad as it felt like it could have been, but it was definitely a bit of a concern. To me, it stems from the play of the bigs. Jonas Adu, Tobe Awaka, I think you need more from them. They're going to combine for 11 points. Adu shoots 3 for 5 from the field. Awaka shoots 2 for 3. A lot of those misses, though, they feel like shots that we're used to seeing them make and have those fall. Jonas Adu in 20 minutes of play, only 5 rebounds. That's less than Dalton Knecht and Zakai Ziegler. When you look at Tobe Awaka, who you would think this would be a game where the refs are kind of letting a lot of contact go down low, and he's been a guy that's been in foul trouble, but the refs swallowing their whistles a little bit, and you need a big rebounder in there. Plays 12 minutes, only grabs 3 rebounds. Do we need more out of these bigs? Is that what we need to see for Tennessee to go out and win some of these games?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, that's been kind of the most concerning trend over the last 2 games because LSU, that's a game Tennessee had put away and of course wins by 20. But there was a stretch there where LSU made Tennessee uncomfortable and they cut it to 8 because they were able to have success rebounding the ball. They beat Tennessee on the boards in that game as well, particularly on the offensive end. They're making the most out of second chance points, and you saw that tonight as well. And, Jonas Adu, a guy who's played, like one of in the conversation with the best bigs in the country at times. But you got to have more. I think you got to have more than 5, out of him. Yeah. And then when he is struggling, I think you have to expect more out of Tobe Awaka, a guy that, you want to come off the bench and be that guy that kind of, can make up for what Jonas Adu is not able to do, because it is tough to do it every night on his part. But it would help if Awaka was coming in and making up for that, and that just hasn't happened either. The foul trouble has been one thing, but yeah, like you said, tonight was a night where they were letting things kind of, the officiating was letting things get kind of rough down there, and you'd like to see a guy like Awaka come in and make the most out of that, and it just hasn't happened. I think it's one thing to have one guy struggling rebounding the ball, but to have both your bigs that you expect a lot out of has been really tough for Tennessee to overcome.
It just feels hit or miss for Jonas Adu right now.
Yeah.
In this game, 5 rebounds. Against LSU, 5 rebounds, and there's multiple times in that game too where it felt like that ball's right there. You got to grab that board. And I think even Rick Barnes said it. Sometimes you just got to step up and grab the rebound. But against Kentucky, he grabs 11. And then against South Carolina, it's 5. And then against Vanderbilt, it's 10. And then against Alabama, it's 4. And you just kind of go down the list and it kind of just goes up and down and up and down. And there's not a lot of games that necessarily it's at like 9 or 8 or even 7. So it feels like either you're getting that double-double game from Jonas Adu and he's looking really good, or maybe it's a little bit of a frustrating night because he's not able to play that role as the rebounding center. Before we get out of here, are you concerned? There's concerns around the fan base. You see it on Twitter. You see it in places where here it goes again. Here's another round of 32 exit. Are you concerned?
I think there's some concerning aspects. I think big picture, I'm not concerned. I don't think that, this is something you're going to see out of this team. I don't think you're going to see this kind of spiral out of control because of one loss here on the road against a team that preseason was picked to finish second in the SEC, was a top 15 team, and obviously has a player who definitely deserves to be in that conversation for SEC Player of the Year. So I do think there is some overreaction there, but I do think that there are aspects that they're going to have to fix, rebounding being one, foul trouble being one, free throw line, trying to take advantage of some free points there in games where you're trying to recapture momentum. I do think that there are some things there you would like to see them be more consistent at, but I don't think big picture there should be any concern that this team is, that their goals and things that we think that they can achieve are just completely out of the picture now. I think this is a team that is certainly capable of making a deep run in March and maybe even further than they've gone before. But I do think that they're going to have to clean up some things for sure.
I like what you said. Big picture, not necessarily concern, but maybe some concerning aspects.
Yeah.
Well, next up for Tennessee, to use the cliche, a Valentine's Day on February 14th with Arkansas on the road. So you're going to stick with another road game. And that's not only been tough for Tennessee, but a lot of teams throughout the country. These top 10 teams losing to unranked opponents. It's been daily, it seems like. Well, Tennessee is going to be on the chopping block again with a trip to Fayetteville. Lady Vols basketball on Monday against Arkansas as well. So they'll get a first crack at the Razorbacks before the men's team does. Tennessee baseball right now is kind of going through a dress rehearsal over at Lindsey Nelson Stadium, the feeling of a weekend series, but it's intra-squad. Been interesting to see who stood out there. Cannon Peebles, 3 home runs in a little less than 2 full games. So he's been an awesome addition out of the transfer portal. If you want updates, all the stats, all the play-by-play from what's going on there, make sure you head over to VolReport.com. And then football season, never ending as well. Tennessee landing Joakim Dotson, 3-star wide receiver out of Tennessee, West Tennessee today. So coverage on all the major sports, softball as well, off to a 3-0 start. So if you're a Tennessee fan, you want all the information you can get on what the Vols are doing throughout all the sports, head over to VolReport.com. Links to everything you need is in the description. And thank you for watching.